All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another one of my interviews here on Drip Talk with Blake DeSnake Roberts. Today, I have a special guest with me. He is a pro wrestling announcer and former commentator, still does commentating here and there. He is the current announcer for OVW. He has been seen on the Netflix show OVW The Wrestlers. He is no other than Eric Cornish. So we will get him on in here and then we'll start on with the interview. Hello.
Hey, what's going on, Blake? How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Doing excellent. Excellent. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, thank you for taking your time out to do this.
I appreciate it, man. It's it's gonna be a good time. I see you got a lot of stars on, so happy to be on here as one of them.
Appreciate it. Yeah. All right. So, is there anything else you would add to whatever?
So yeah, I mean, you said commentator. I have recently kind of come back into the commentary role on OVW Overdrive, which took a little hiatus, but it's back now. So it's on Tuesday nights on our YouTube channel. So I'm happy to be back on the commentary desk once again, as well as doing the ring announcing for most of the OVW Rise events and a lot of our pay-per-views as well.
Nice. Yep. All right. So the first question I'll ask you is, when did you start getting into wrestling, or what made you want to get into the wrestling business?
Well, I mean, as you probably can relate to, I don't remember a time where I wasn't a wrestling fan, which I'm imagining you probably in that same boat, right?
Yep.
So it goes back. My dad was a big fan. My grandpa was a big fan, and I mean, I started watching Memphis wrestling out of Louisville when I was very young. So again, I don't remember not watching it. And then branched off from there to the WWF, the NWA, WCW, World Class. I mean, anything I get my eyeballs on, I was watching at the time when I was a kid. So it was always a thing that I thought would be cool to do. I just never really thought I'd be able to. I think
Mm-hmm.
growing up like I did in the 80s and 90s, it wasn't like something you could just jump into. It wasn't an easy business to find your way in. So um, I went into the radio business and started doing radio when I was in college and then right out of college. And my first year in radio there in Bowling Green, Kentucky, there was a little independent show that was running and advertising on a radio station. So I just reached out. I said, "Hey, since you're advertising with us, I'd love to come out. I'm a big fan. If you want me to be the guest ring announcer on a match or whatever, I'd be happy to help you." And it turns out that the guy that usually did the ring announcing was in like a little fender bender that night and couldn't come. So they just had me do the whole show. And it was
Oh
cool
wow.
because, yeah, I mean, it was cool because guys like, Coco Beware was on the show and Tracy Smothers. I mean, a couple guys I grew up watching. So it was neat. That's the reason I wanted to go. And from that point on, I just started showing up, and they had stuff for me to do anytime I showed up. And that was about 20 years ago. That was back in 2004.
Nice. Yeah. So growing up with some of the legends, and you get to meet them, and not even just meet them, you get to actually work with them. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it certainly was.
What are some of like your inspirations that you took for doing announcing and commentating?
Number one has to be Lance Russell. Lance Russell from USWA Memphis Wrestling. I mean, he was the voice. I mean, if you had Jerry Lawler without Lance Russell, just wasn't the same. He just had a very, very cool way of delivering things. You know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
I could try my best to try to imitate that, and I can't because Lance is one of a kind. But I do pay a little tribute to him, my broadcast colleague, AJ McKay. When we do Overdrive, we always start off every show with the same way Lance did it, which was, hello everybody, right along ringside for another big day of wrestling. And I mean, that's what Lance always did. And before we did that, before we had a shirt made with that on there, right along ringside, we even reached out to Lance's son, and we've since been able to meet his son Shane, who is awesome and very supportive of us, and just thankful that we are big fans of his dad. So Lance Russell's number one, but there's been a lot of great. I mean, I love Gorilla Monsoon. I love Bobby Heenan. I love Jim Ross, and the list goes on and on. But I mean, if you got to ask me one, it's Lance Russell for sure.
Definitely. Yeah, I heard a little bit about him and seen some of the stuff, not a lot, but some of the stuff Lance did. And yeah, he is pretty good at what he does. And I do enjoy his commentating.
Yeah, he was purely Memphis, and I mean, he spent a little time in WCW in the early days, but I mean, there's just something about Lance Russell sitting there at the table at the TV studio that it just wouldn't work anywhere else. Like what he delivered there, and it's like the way he would treat the heels, and I feel like I do that a lot at ringside, just unconscious. When the heels come out, it's like, oh, come on, man. And Lance was all really good at that. So I'll find myself doing that every now and then, not even realizing it.
Right. When you watched wrestling as a kid, who were some of like your top favorite wrestlers growing up, and like who did you try like mimicking in like your backyard wrestling, if you ever did that or whatever?
Yeah, I didn't really do the backyard wrestling thing, but I did. I mean, it was basement for me. It was the basement. I just had my high school reunion this weekend and ran into one of my buddies, and we used to always we'd go down the basement. He was reminding me of stuff. It's like the pool table was the top rope, and we used to, we had this big. You probably don't even know what this thing is, but it's a big old stereo that it was probably the size of a kitchen counter. And it had, it had a record player in it. It had a tape player, 8-track, the whole deal. And we would play our theme music coming out of that thing, which was down in the basement. But like the people that I idolized, and it goes back to Memphis again. I mean, Jerry Lawler's my guy. That's my pop up there is Jerry Lawler. That's my number one. But the other ones, and that's more me going back and looking now at who I respect the most. I think like when I was a kid, I really liked the Ultimate Warrior. I was more of a Warrior kid than a Hogan kid. And then as time went on, I was, I liked Razor Ramon. I liked, the Undertaker, Sting. I was fans of all those guys. And Shawn Michaels to me is one of the best, probably the best in-ring performer if you really want to boil it down. But number one on my list is always Jerry Lawler.
Yeah. Who would you say are some of like your favorite wrestlers to watch now in the business?
It's really cool. I mean, I like, I mean, if you want to talk about the guys in OVW, I mean, I love watching people develop there. And, Cal Hero's one of those guys. And I know you're up there from his territory. Cal's great. And he just cares so much about it. And he just keeps working so hard. So I love to see him develop. A guy that recently kind of moved on. I'm not saying he's gone from OVW altogether, but he's trying out some different stuff. Luke Curtis, absolutely love Luke Curtis. And that guy has got a ton of potential, along with his fiance Layla Gray, who's doing awesome stuff in AEW. So both of them, love them to death. So I'm sure we'll talk more OVW coming up. But some of the other, in the bigger promotions, I mean, I've always been a big fan of Bryan Danielson. I think he's great. Love what Cody Rhodes has done for the business, period. I mean, more than just being a great in-ring performer, like Cody changed the business. He really did. I mean, he was one of the first to say, listen, I'm going to take that step. I'm going to leave this great contract because I don't like what I'm doing, but I'm not just going to leave and then just complain. You know what I mean? Which is what most people do. They
Yeah.
go and they go out there. They might get another deal, but then they just badmouth the company they used to work for. Cody just went out there and he said, "I'm going to make this better. I'm going to do better things," and he did. I mean, Cody, you can say there's a world where you can look at it and go, Cody leaving started the whole process of everything the way it is today. From AEW being created to, on to him coming back and WrestleMania being as big as it is and everything else. I mean, so I love Cody. I think Cody's doing a great job and taking the ball and running with it. And I think he's got years and years to come. So very excited.
For sure. Yeah, he's the champion, and just him as the champion, he's doing great. And yeah, I think he has definitely a long reign ahead of him for the title. So,
And OVW
was there anybody? Yeah, correct. Yep. Did you ever have any like wrestling trainers like in your career to help you with like your voice to do ring announcing or commentating? Was there any type of trainers that helped you do that?
Yeah, as far as ring announcing, not really. I just kind of started doing it, you know what I mean? And there wasn't,
Yeah.
because my radio background, they're usually, it's awful to say this, but I think ring announcers are sometimes the last people that wrestling promoters and people that put on wrestling shows think about. When in all reality, I think what we do is very important, especially on say a house show, which let's face it, most wrestling shows are house shows. They're not televised. You have to have a ring announcer that will guide the show from beginning to end. I mean, you think about the wrestlers are out there maybe, 7 minutes to 10 minutes or maybe 20 minutes and, an hour if you're really good, right? But like,
Yeah.
ring announcers are out there from the beginning of the show to the end of the show. Even referees don't take every match in most cases. So, so like, we're the ones that are out there the whole time, and we've got to move the show in the right direction. So I think we're very important, and I think sometimes a lot of promoters, not all of them, but a lot of promoters don't think about it until the last minute, and they're calling and going, "Oh, I need a good ring announcer," or whatever. So no, I never really did. I mean, all the promotions I worked for early on didn't really have any, ring announcers. They might have had some talent that would do it, or they just find person in the crowd that like was interested in doing it. So I think I kind of used my radio experience to go, "Hey, I can do this. This is kind of what I do outside of wrestling anyway." And then when it came to commentary, I mean, I'm still learning with commentary.
Yeah.
And I learned from my peers that are out there, and now I try to study a little bit more of some of the greats. And I certainly get my fair share of wisdom from Al Snow as I'm talking. So he's constantly in the ear telling you what direction to go. But it does help. It does help because you're not. It's not like my radio business, and Al will be the first one to tell you this isn't radio. So people can see what's going on. Now you have to tell them why it's happening, and so I'm definitely still learning on that front for sure. And Al's somebody who can teach me.
Of course, yeah. When growing up, did you want to become a wrestler, and what made you decide to stick to doing like the announcing and commentating and not go into like the wrestling route of things?
Yeah, I was. I think when I was really young, I kind of said, "Yeah, I want to be a wrestler someday," But it's like I said before, it's it's hard, and you don't know how that works or what, because OVW was around when I was still young, but I didn't know about it. It wasn't big yet. So it was like, it didn't really go through the roof with like the Cenas and Batistas and stuff until after I left and went to college. And so that's when it started picking up. So I was already gone from Louisville at that point, at least for a little while. So, I don't know. I guess I really didn't think about being a wrestler after just being, a very, very young kid. And I wasn't, I mean, I played sports some, but I wasn't a super athletic guy. And I think by the time I got into it, it was like, I think I'm kind of past the point that I want to be a wrestler, but I would get in there and I've done some stuff in a ring. I've had quote unquote matches. I've had basic training to know, how to take a bump and how to do basic things because I did some other things besides ring announcing. But I would never, even though I've had matches, I would never consider myself a wrestler because what those guys and girls do on a regular basis is just I have the utmost respect for them, and I wouldn't even pretend to be what they are. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I think everybody in the wrestling business has to learn, like any part of like commentating and ring announcing should learn bumps because you never know when like you might have to take one, so
It's very important. I mean, if I'm explaining to somebody on commentary about what's going on in the ring, I mean, you as a fan, if you're just watching and you're seeing them fall, you don't know what that is. Like, you don't know what it feels like. You could kind of figure it out. It's like I've fallen down before, but there's a few moves that you as a commentator kind of have to explain to the audience of like what that feels like, or I think everybody can tell, oh, that hurts, but you know what I mean? So
yeah.
it helps to have a little bit of experience knowing what that stuff feels like.
Right, yeah. Like I've had like one thing of basic training and I did like the bumps running the ropes. The bumps did hurt to start off with, and then I did like rolls and stuff, and yeah, so
Yeah. How much did it surprise you how much it hurt to run the ropes?
it actually didn't hurt,
Really?
surprisingly. Yeah.
You didn't hit him hard enough, kid. That's what the trainers would have said. But that's the part that always surprised me is like you watch people hit the ropes. It's just like rubber bands. You know what I mean? But if you hit the ropes a
Hmm.
couple times, it's like, especially that middle rope, that'll get you.
Who are some of like the wrestlers that like the stiffest wrestlers you've seen in the ring during your time?
Um, that I've been around at ringside. I mean, the thing is, like, we talk about being stiff. I mean, there's a difference between being stiff and being dangerous. You know what I mean? Um, there's people that lay it in, and I enjoy it when people are laying it in. I think guys that I work with now, cash flow dishing out those chops. Those are always pretty solid. He's not going to back off on those things. Um, I don't know. It's hard to say who's stiff because I think the real goal is for everybody to have everything look good but be safe. You know what I mean? So it's hard to
Hmm.
speak to who's working stiff. I just think as long as it looks legit and as long as everybody comes out unscathed, I think you'd be all right.
Right. Yep. Were you ever in any like of school or amateur wrestling as a kid?
Amateur wrestling, no. Never did. And my school that I was in did not offer it. And then when I was in high school, like I said, I wasn't really doing any of the varsity sports. That I did get asked a few times to do it. The coaches were kind of like, "You might be good for the wrestling team," but I just never did. Um, I was more of an academic kid at that point, so
Yeah. Right.
I
Yeah.
didn't do any amateur stuff. Then the only training, like the training that I began to take, when I was in Bowling Green and stuff, the few bumps and moves that I learned how to do, that was through the crew that was there. It was a little promotion called Vet City Wrestling, which is no longer around. The promoter, his name is J.W. Wildfire, Joey Hubbard, who he has passed away since then, but he was running it. There were some people around that were helping him, and that's kind of the first place I learned I learned a lot more when I moved on down the road, but that's kind of the beginning of everything for me.
Right. Were you ever in like any type of drama class, or like were you ever in like any types of musicals or plays as a kid?
I did not do plays, but I was on the speech team for my high school. So I did some of that. I was in competed in like the improv stuff, and radio broadcasting was a part of speech as well. So you'd have to like read the news, and you'd have to make transitions and stuff. And then of course, in high school, I also did. They had the student newscast. Actually, I started in the student newscast when I was in 8th grade. They created it when I was in 8th grade, so it was like the very first year it had ever been done. And they
Oh,
the teacher asked me if I would like to be a part of it, and I told her, I'm camera shy now. So you see where that went. So she was like, no, you're gonna do it. And so what I did was I was like, okay, well, I don't want to just sit at a desk and read news. I want to do something different. So I was like, I'm gonna go out and like take my camcorder out and film like the sports games and get like the insight into people watching them and all this stuff. So very first episode that they aired, like my segment was longer than the rest of the newscast put together. They were like, "Good job, but you might want to scale that down a little bit." So that was my training, and then of course I've in high school did the student newscast, and then and majored in TV and radio when I was in college. So that's where a lot of my training came from.
nice. Yeah. I'm thinking about wanting to go to college for like podcasting and that type of thing because I want to get further in doing that and like all like the sports broadcasting, not just like podcasting, like even if it's like doing like what you were talking about, like sports or
Yeah.
anything in between podcasts. And then I also want to go for like maybe graphic designing because I'm good at like making posters and stuff for things. And
Yeah,
so,
all stuff that I wish I would have got into a little bit earlier in life. Especially the graphic design part of it. But of course, it's changed so much since I was in school. And now I'm in the printing business. So and I don't know anything about the graphic design part. I go out and sell it. But that was
yeah.
that's one thing I kind of wish I would have learned earlier on. And the podcasting stuff, of course, I wasn't around, when I was younger, and that's a great skill to have. So I would certainly learn all you can there. You seem to be doing a pretty good job already, so you're on a good roll.
Thank you. Yeah, because I just got asked by a wrestling promotion in Michigan to be their part of their roster to be their interviewer, backstage
No,
interviewer for like their YouTube shows and just interviews in general. So I get to be part of their roster. I get to be backstage, and my first show was Saturday, and Connor and Facade and Danny Moe were there. Those were the three big guests, and
yeah,
I just got to interview all the wrestlers. For my first show, I was kind of nervous to do it. I've been to multiple of their shows before, but just getting to do it for the first time like that, it was nerve wracking just being behind the scenes and everything for the first time. So, but afterwards, it was really fun and I can't wait to do it again. So,
that's cool. That's cool. Did you get any feedback from the promoters or anybody?
yeah, I got a lot of feedback. All like the wrestlers said I did really good. Um, and the promoter said I did really good and he can't wait to have me back, and all of like the other like commentating people and all of those said I was pretty good. So
Cool.
yeah, that was great to hear that.
Yeah, I'll be happy to give you feedback if you ever want to send me any of that stuff, because I enjoy that, and some good people too. I've interviewed both Facade and Danny, and I haven't seen them in a while. I miss those guys, but that's one of those things too. I enjoy teaching not only like how to interview, but like some talent sometimes that have an issue with talking about themselves, getting themselves over and stuff like that. I remember Danny, this has been several years ago now, and she was kind of new to doing the interviews, and so we worked on some stuff, and she was very open to hearing some ideas, and I thought she did very well, and I think she's improved greatly. So that's cool that you saw her. You see them again. Tell them I said hello.
Yeah, I probably will be getting them for an interview sometime soon. They're great people. I got to talk to them for a long period of time at the show, and they're just amazing. So, what do you consider to be a weakness and then a strength of yours in the wrestling business?
A weakness of mine, um, I would say it's still the commentary part, um, which is weird because I did radio for so long. But as I
Yeah.
mentioned before, Daddy Al Snow tells me this isn't radio, and it's not. And so it's just trying to get the point of what needs to be conveyed on commentary. So I'm working with that every day. You know, I think that's probably a weakness for me. I really do enjoy ring announcing, and um, I enjoy being at ringside. I tell you what, I think one of my strengths is. One of my strengths is the fact that I've been in broadcasting. So when we're doing live TV, it's more than just about doing the announcing. It's understanding forward momentum. It's
Hmm.
understanding moving things in the right direction. It's understanding how to get from one segment to another. It's understanding that we've got to hit times, and it's communication. So sometimes while I'm at ringside, like I'm also communicating to folks. You know what I mean? It's not just announcing people to ringside. And sometimes equipment fails, whether it's the referee's earpiece. And if the referee's earpiece fails, well, they're not getting the time cues that they need. And I am, so I'm at ringside and I've got to convey that to them. Or maybe one of the
Yeah.
talents inside, and they don't know what the situation is. I got to be out there and I got to communicate to people while things going on. So occasionally you'll see me jump up with the other, agents in suits to separate people, but sometimes it's because I need to pass along some information. So I think that's like a strong suit for me because I'm all about communication, and I'm all about making sure we hit times and that we're making a show. So to me, I think that's probably my biggest strength, and that I understand that part of it because I've seen people get out there before to ring announce and they just get so lost in it that they forget that there's other things that need to be conveyed out there. So
Yeah, for sure. Is it hard traveling from show to show, and what is like the worst or best thing about traveling for you?
um I love traveling. I really do. And honestly, I wish I could do it more because um I don't travel a lot for OVW. The shows I do are usually pretty close. Um, and as you've seen, I've made my way up to Wisconsin a couple times. We did a loop one weekend not too long ago, where we went through Ohio, way up to near Youngstown, Ohio, and then over to Milwaukee, and then back down, and we made that whole trip for the weekend. And um, that was a long one. That was like the longest trip I think I've ever made on a loop for wrestling. And I loved it. I loved every minute of it. I loved leaving, early in the morning, middle of the night, whatever. And when you're with good people, that's kind of what the wrestling business is about. But it's good to get home. I've got a family. I've got two kids, and they're 12 and 13, and my wife. We've been married almost 19 years, so she understands, and they understand that this is my fun thing that I do on the side. You know what I mean? But it's because it is. It's not what pays the bills. So if as long as it doesn't conflict with their games or things that we've got going on, I'll make a long trip like that. And I'll make time for Blizzard Brawl up there because I love Dave and I love what he does up there. So, but yeah, so as far as traveling goes, like I love to travel, and I basically get to pick and choose what travel I did. Like recently, we did our big Pikeville show, which was fight night in the arena there in Pikeville, and that's the biggest crowd we've ever had. It was the biggest build we've had for any show we've ever done. And I say I don't ever let it interfere with anything, but fact was I didn't realize it was Labor Day weekend, which I go on a trip with my family to the Smoky Mountains every year. So not only my immediate family, but my mom and dad, my sister comes in from North Carolina, and so all that was going on, and I totally forgot that the show was happening in Pikeville. So I did leave very early in the morning one morning, went and did the Pikeville show, and came back, and then ended up doing the rest of the vacation. So so anyway, Blake, you there? Oh, there you are. Okay.
Sorry about that. My
All right.
water bottle fell and then
Knocked everything loose. All right. Well, I hope everything that story got out there, but if it didn't, oh well.
yeah, you were still on there, so the
Okay,
story went out.
Good. So anyway,
Right.
yeah, we left like I said, in the middle of the vacation, went did the pay-per-view and came back and enjoyed the rest of the vacation. And that was a lot of travel because it was like 5 hours to the vacation, 3 hours back to Pikeville, 3 hours back to the cabin, and then 5 hours back leaving vacation. So that was a lot of travel, but I loved every minute of it. And I hate that I missed a little part of the vacation with my family, but they understood, especially my dad, who's like, "You gotta go," being a wrestling fan, going to. He knew the importance,
Right.
So, but anyway, so most of the time I plan the travel on weekends that I know I can go and that I know I'm not missing anything. So yeah. So as far as the travel goes, I love it, and I kind of make my own travel schedule. So I like that.
All right. And Daniel is in here, and he said that.
Of course. What's up, Daniel?
So I know earlier you mentioned you for your first ever wrestling show, you contacted them to be part, and you went there. So what was it like getting to perform in front, or getting to perform, doing all this announcing in front of this crowd for this first time, and just
I didn't tell you about the crowd because the crowd wasn't much. Like the crowd was about 75 people, if I'm being generous. I don't think you could get many more people in the venue we were in. It was a very small venue, and it taught me real quick what independent wrestling was, because as much as I was already an adult, I didn't know anything about independent wrestling at all. So walking into that was kind of like, oh, this is cool, because you're like close up to everything, but like there's not many people here. And how did they not know that Coco Beware is here in town? You know what I mean? And but that was a downtime for wrestling. It was, WCW was gone and ECW was gone. And WWE was the only game in town. You know what I mean? So TNA had just opened up down the road, but it was still in its infancy, and it was still doing pay-per-views, not even on regular TV. So yeah, wrestling was in a downtime. But to me, that and to those people that would show up, to those 50 to 75 people that would show up every Sunday at that little venue, this was the world to them. You know what I mean? So performing in front of them meant everything to the wrestlers too. And so for me, I basically sat at a table and announced everybody to the ring. I didn't have a wrestling license yet, so I couldn't even go into the barricade in the state of Kentucky. So I was just doing whatever. It's like, here's the card, announce them to the ring. So that was it. That was my complete level of involvement until it was like a few months into it. The ring announcer that I told you about that was there and had been in a car accident. Well, he was back. We were working together at this point, and he was scheduled to be in an angle with one of the managers, one of the female valets, in a guitar on a pole match, or without a pole. I don't know. It was a guitar match. Basically, the loser is the one who gets hit on the head with guitar. Well, he decided he didn't want to do it like 2 weeks before. He had been in the red. His back was still messed up. So, which is fine, understandable. But the booker at the time was not happy because they had built to this match, right? And these 50 people were counting on seeing this match. So what happened was, I think the booker was walking through the arena before the doors opened one day and just kind of pointed at me. It was like, I bet this kid would do it. I was like, would do what? He was like, get hit but with a guitar. I was like, yeah, sure. He goes, all right, kid, get your license, and then you'll be on the show coming up Easter Sunday. All right, cool. So here I come Easter Sunday, and now I'm in the angle. I've got a license. I am wrestling this valet who's a female who is also untrained. I'm untrained, and I'm like all the way up till time we go out. I'm like, what are we doing? Like what am I supposed to do when I go out there? Like nothing. You won't have to do a thing. It's just the referee's gonna get distracted. Boom, you hit it with the guitar. We're done. I'm like, okay, is it gonna hurt? And he's like, well, just just don't look up at it because I don't want to get your nose, and I want to get you right here on the. I'm like, okay. He goes, I'll soften it up a little bit. Well, and here's the funny part. So he's like, I'm gonna soften up the back a little bit. So his way was just kind of pounding on the back of the guitar. 2 seconds before we go out of the crowd, the back falls off the guitar. The whole back falls off the guitar. And so he walks out there with a guitar with no strings and just a front and sides and the back, which now lives right here, by the way. This is it. This is the one.
Wow.
That fell off. So we walk out there, and it was probably 5 minutes. Boom, happens. Get hit with the guitar. I go down face first, and I'm smiling. I am smiling. Nobody can see it because I'm selling, but I'm smiling because I'm like, I'm in the wrestling business, and this is so cool. And my dad's at ringside, and I know he's eating it up, right? And my sister, who never liked wrestling, she's there too to watch, and she's freaking out, thinking I'm dead. So, and I went back, and we had to go right past her on the rail to go back to the back, and they're carrying me, and I get right to about where she is, and I just slump down, you know what I mean? And she, and I didn't do anything. She's like texting me, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" I'm just like, nothing, And finally, I revealed to her, like, I'm okay. I'm not dead. I'm good. It's okay. But yeah. So as far as performing in front of a crowd, that was the moment there. With the ring announcing was kind of like everyday thing for me because of the radio gig. But like, then when that happened, it was like, okay, I get it. I understand it now. So.
Wow, that was great. If you could go back in time and do an announcing for anybody that has passed away, who would that be?
Wow. Anybody that's passed away. Let me think, because there's a lot of good ones. Well, the first one I always say, but he's not technically dead, and that's The Undertaker. I would love to announce for him. But anybody that's passed away, I tell you what, and I'll say this only because I don't think he gets enough love, and he just passed away recently, and that's Sid Vicious. I was a big fan of his growing up, and I didn't mention him earlier, but like he was one of my dark horses that I just always, I don't know what it was about him, that he had a certain kind of charisma that nobody else had. And sure, maybe he wasn't technically great in the ring, but he always was a presence, you know what I mean? So, and I almost had a chance to announce for him years ago. And for whatever reason, I didn't do the show, but I did get to interview him, I think on the radio, like over the phone, but I would have loved to introduce him. And I've gotten to introduce some really cool people. I mean, I am blessed to have been able to introduce my favorite, Jerry Lawler, and guys like Bill Dundee and the Rock and Roll Express, and Al Snow, and like all these people.
Right.
So yeah, I think I would go back. I think Sid would be a good one. Maybe Roddy Piper would be another one. Because I love Piper. His gift of gab was amazing.
Most definitely. One of like the best talkers on the mic, Rowdy.
Yeah.
And I was actually supposed to meet Sid October 26th because he was scheduled for a show in Minnesota. Um, that was actually going to be his like next show that he was supposed to be at. But yeah,
Yeah, sad thing. I think he was a lot sicker than anybody really knew. Um, but I'm kind of sad I never got to meet him because he was one of the ones that definitely would have been a chance, down the road with all the conventions and stuff we do. But
right.
but yeah, so that's that really hit me, when it happened. It was just weird. It was like, man, I was a huge fan of Sid's when I was younger. I mean, think about it. The guy was like, he was only in 2 WrestleManias, but he main evented both. Who can say that? You know what I mean? For like a
Right.
Lawrence Taylor, you know what I mean? But doesn't
Yeah.
count.
Yeah, because I think I went on to Facebook the day of that he passed away, and the first post I seen somebody announced that he passed away, and I was like beyond shocked. I didn't even know he was sick, so like I thought it was false at first until I tried looking up more of it, and unfortunately, it was true. So, who are your three top favorite wrestlers to announce in the OVW?
I love to announce cash flow. Um, just I can get real guttural with the proprietor of the chop shop. I love that. I love Shira. Mahabali Shira is a good one too. He's just got a good name that you can really get behind. And then the other one, I've got a couple that I really like. I will say on the women's side, one Freya. I love saying Freya the Slayer. That's another good one too. And and then I always like to introduce Dream Girl Ellie,
Oh
because I
yeah.
never know what she's gonna do. she she may stare me down. She may, I don't know. I never know what she's gonna do, but we have fun out there. So those are all my favorites.
Of course, yeah. If you could make a Survivor Series match with you being the manager with four wrestlers from any era who are still alive today, who would you choose as? Well, that would be five, because yeah,
So five wrestlers, all of them still alive, but not necessarily still active. Is that what you're saying?
yeah, from any era.
All right, all right. Got to be Lawler. Lawler's gonna be. It'll be the King's Court. He's going to be the main guy. Um, I would love to manage him. I will take. I will put Shawn Michaels in there. Just because he's such a great performer. I'll probably throw Ric Flair in there too. Um, Again, right up there with Shawn as far as a performer goes. But both of them, not only are they great in ring, they've got great personality, and Shawn really hasn't worked with too many managers, but Flair has, so Flair
Yeah,
would know how to work off me too. So I think that would be good. Um, and then let me think. I think it would be cool. Well, I mean, of course, everybody would love to be near The Rock. So I think The Rock would be a good one to play off of. And who else? Who else? Who else? I'll go ahead and I'm going to throw in somebody who I've actually managed before, and this is a wild card, and he is just a wild card in life and in the wrestling ring. A guy named Jamie Dundee, who is
oh
also
yeah,
known as JC Ice of PG-13 and Nation of Domination fame. I've actually managed him before, and he's a ton of fun. So I'm gonna throw him in there too. That way, he'd finally
yeah,
get a chance to team with The Rock, which they grew up together, and He always was mad that him and The Rock never got to team up. Don't watch the old shoot interviews because that's not really Jamie. But that story's out.
Jamie's great. I have an interview coming up with him on the 24th.
Don't plan on talking very much. He'll do
Yeah, I know. I had him on like a while back too, so
he's great.
Yeah. Are you a fan of like the death matches? Would you ever do announcing for any type of death match scene wrestling?
No. I'm really not a fan. I'm just not. It's just not my thing. I mean, and there's a difference between doing a hardcore match, weapons type match, and doing like a full show of just death matches with people hitting each other with light tubes and stuff. It's just not my scene, man. I'm fine if that's what you want to do and that's what you like. I'm not gonna hate on you for that. It's just not my thing. If you watch the documentary Wrestlers, there's a piece in there, with Hollywood Haley J and Amazing Maria having their death match, which tame by most standards, but the crowd at Davis Arena had never seen anything like that before. And I remember watching it in person and going, not really my thing. And it really, I mean, to be honest with you, you watch it and tell it's really not Haley's thing either. Maria's
right.
More into it. But I remember it being over and just going, you just didn't do it for me. But then watching it back on like Netflix and the story and the way that they filmed it and everything, it's like, man, I cried. I mean, I literally was in tears when that thing was over because it was amazing. And that's why with something like that can get you because of the story that's being told, then that's what matters. But a lot of the deathmatch, and I won't say all of them, but a lot of these deathmatch shows, and you'll go into them and it's just like, okay, here's this guy and they're going to hit each other with a bunch of stuff. Well, why are they so mad at each other? I don't know. It's just they're supposed to hit each other with stuff. That's not a story to me. It's just not. And it's one thing to go in a ring and hit each other and try to do moves and try to win. It's another thing to try to hurt somebody, especially if there's no reason and no story to hurt somebody. So not a death match guy. Just not.
Right, yeah. Is there any piece of merch that you have or had that has sold out pretty quickly?
That is sold out? I would say and people, it's funny because I do get, some of the wrestlers like, you got merch? It's like, hey, if I don't have it, I can't sell it. I might not sell as much as you, but if it's not on the table, nobody can buy it. So, the things that have gone over the best are like my little souvenir microphones. Kids seem to like those. So I've had to restock those several times. So those were probably the best selling.
Yeah. Is there any time a fan has seen you in public and got like super surprised and or excited?
I don't know if they've got excited or super. I mean, but I am getting to the point now where people do see me in public and know me from that. I've had just so many years of just because of the radio stuff anyway. It's like, people don't see me on a regular basis, but we do enough social media and everything else and appearances that people would know me. So it's weird because I always have to think in my brain, because I'm so bad with, like, I'll remember a face but don't know where I know the face from. So I'll see somebody and they'll go, hey, and I'll be like, hey, you. It's like I'm like rolling over in my brain. Do I know you from real life? Do I know you from the radio life? Do I know you from wrestling? Like, what is it? It used to be I had different names that I could work off of, but I've used my real name for so long. Now at this point, not only on the radio, but on on OVW, that it's like, they're just like, hey, Eric. I'm like, hey. I had people that said I was at my reunion last weekend and at a football game, and people just drove by and they rolled down the window and they were like, hey, you're Eric from OVW. I was like, I am. I didn't recognize the people at all, but apparently they've come to many shows, and so yeah. So I don't know about like being excited. I would feel almost strange if they got like real excited and wouldn't know how to take that. I have a hard time. I have a hard time dealing with that. My wife's just like, just say thank you. I'm like, okay, thank you. It's just weird.
If you could have a movie made about your career, who would you want to play you?
Maybe I could play. I don't know who would want to play. If I could pull somebody from the past, another one that just passed away not too long ago, Matthew Perry from Friends. I would pull in Matthew Perry. I've been told our sense of humor is similar. So yeah, if he was still on this earth, I would pick him.
Definitely, yeah. I could definitely see Conrad Thompson.
Okay. I don't have the deep Alabama accent as he does, but yeah, okay. All right. I'll take it.
Who's your favorite horror character and favorite horror movie if you have one?
Oh man. Favorite horror movie, and I don't know if you can call it like horror or suspense, whatever. I did like The Conjuring a lot. I was a big fan of that. And like, I guess there's a difference between that and like the slasher movies and stuff. When I was in high school and like middle school, I used to watch like all the Nightmare on Elm Street and Freddy movies and stuff. I like Freddy. I like my bad guys to have a little humor to them. So that's kind of what in my days is, a bad guy in wrestling, which I did a little bit. I was like, I always got to throw a little humor in it too. And I thought Freddy was good that way.
Right. What is generally your favorite music to listen to in like your spare time?
Mainly country music. That's what I did. Mainly through my career in radio, and not only did I work in it, but I was a fan. All types of country music, and it's kind of weird because now that I've been out of radio for the last year, I'm kind of finding my fandom again, if that makes sense. Because like I'd always been a fan, and I was always in country, and I always listened to everything, but I was listening from the perspective of like a program director or music director going, is this good? But not like, do I like it? But is it good? Will everybody? You know what I mean? So
yeah,
I've kind of over time kind of forgotten what it's like to actually listen to something and go, do I like this? Like, and so I'm finding like new stuff, and I'm going, oh, okay, cool. I never really like I didn't through all the years I was doing radio, I didn't listen to people like Whiskey Myers who like just kind of like popped up. I'd always heard of them, but it was like they were all in the fringe. They weren't really radio acts. And so now I was like, oh, Whiskey Myers, let me check it out. Okay, good. I like this stuff. You know what I mean? So
right.
Anyway, so now it's weird that yes, I do like country. I'm a big fan of like 80s and 90s rock. I like the hair bands and stuff. I like Bon Jovi. I like even going back to the Journey stuff. Like I mean I'm a sucker for like the classic radio hits myself. So, but anyway, and I just actually this past weekend at an OVW show met somebody who I was a big fan of. Like when I first started in radio, I was all about like the new artists that were coming out, right? And so there was a guy in the early 2000s by the name of Shannon Lawson. Had a number one hit in country called "Goodbye on a Bad Day," but not much else. And he had an album out called "Chase the Sun" in the early 2000s, and me and my buddy were like big fans of that. We were both doing radio, but it was like that was the time we were still into stuff, you know what I mean? And we used to listen to that album nonstop. And I got to the point where I thought we were the only two who even owned that album because nobody else knew who he was and nobody else knew anything about it. And so we had a show this weekend at Mom's Music there in Louisville, and there was a bunch of bands that played before we went on, and he was one of the guys that was playing. And I felt bad because he was playing early in the day because he had to get to Nashville to do a show with like John Rich and Gretchen Wilson. So it's like you're literally in a parking lot in Louisville, and then you're driving and going to play with like these stars, right? And
Right.
there
Yeah.
was it was early, so there was hardly anybody there. Like we're putting up a ring, there's a couple people there milling around, and he's playing all these songs. I had to go up and talk to him. It was like, man, like you don't understand how big a fan I am of yours. And he was kind of looking around like, me? You talking about me? Um, so that was kind of a neat connection because all my years in radio, I never did get to meet him, you know. And I met a lot of people in radio, but he was one I just never did get to. So here I am in a parking lot setting up a wrestling ring, and I get to meet, you know, a guy that I was a fan of 20 years ago. So it's pretty cool.
Right. Yeah. A spot you probably didn't expect to see him at.
No, not at all. Most wrestling shows are not a place you go to see musical artists that you were fans of.
Right. What has been the funniest thing a fan has said to you before?
Oh, I don't know. I like it's. I'll go way back in the day because back in my like Bowling Green, Kentucky early days, I mean there were some people in that crowd that just, like I said, this is what they live and die for, and that's who you perform for, you know. But bless their hearts, man, they were something else. And so there was this older lady, and she had her two sons, and her two sons were probably in their late 20s, early 30s, right? And you couldn't understand hardly anything that they said. But the one dude, like every week, and then by this time, let's say I was managing a little bit, and I'd kind of gone to the bad side, right? Every week, man, as soon as I come out, this dude would point at me and be like, "Hey, punk," and that's it. That's the only word you could understand. Because then after that, he would just like ramble like all this gibberish, and I was like, "Yeah, okay." Like, just did not understand. But that was that. It was Hey Punk, and then that was, I think we knew his name, which think it was Bobby. No, he was Bobby. Might have been the other one. Anyway, the other guy, he would go, "Hey man," and one would say Hey Punk, the other one would say Hey man, and so that's what we ended up naming, was like Hey Punk and Hey Man. And then so it wasn't necessarily something they intentionally said that was funny. It was just funny. Like every time we come out, just like, all right, here's the guys that I'm gonna antagonize tonight because you know it'll rile the rest of the crowd up. You know.
Yeah.
At OVW, I try. It's weird because people try to talk to me like constantly, and I feel bad because I can't talk to everybody because I've got people talking to my ear. What they don't realize is I've got like 3 different people talking to me in my ear, you know, while I'm trying to work. So sometimes I don't hear what they're saying. I can hear them saying my name, but I'm like, okay. And when I get a chance to talk to them, it is cool though. But like Gracie, who was, of course, a big star on Netflix herself, and I make sure to put her over anytime I can. You know, even at 10 years old, she's a Netflix superstar. Um, but I used to get chased by a demon named ZDP, who has mysteriously disappeared on OVW TV. But he used to chase me around, and so she'll still come up to me and like any chance she gets, like, Eric, ZDP's behind you. So you know, I've always got to sell it, like, whoa, oh my god. Yeah, so it's just fun. I like interacting with the crowd, no matter what side it is.
Right. What would you say has been the best fan compliment you've received either at like a show or convention?
Um, I there's one woman who I've seen 2 or 3 times, and she just, you know, come up to me and she's like, "Hey, you're our favorite announcer, just so you know." And I thought that was really cool. Um, and again, I have a hard time taking that kind of stuff just because I know it's like, okay, but you know, it's that's how they feel, and that's part of their week, and they enjoy coming to OVW. I mean, you know, I'll take my wife's advice, just say thank you, you know. But
Yeah.
I have a hard time accepting that compliment because I know there's so many great people out there. You know what I mean? Another thing was It's more the experiences. It's not the announcing so much as it is the experiences. Um, we sorry, man, I'm getting over this cold here, but we had we have this fan zone thing that's kind of taken off for OVW. Um, and it's just a Facebook page that a lot of the fans get on and they interact with each other. And I think it's made it such a community. And I love it. I love being a part of it and watching what they're saying because it's that's their group of friends. You know what I mean? And that's all through OVW. And I think that's awesome. Um, and I saw a comment from one of the guys on there who's at every one of the shows, and we see him and his daughter there all the time. And I didn't realize the part that I played in their fandom. Because I don't remember when they started coming to every show. I just know they're at every show. I don't remember when people start coming. It's just like I see them there, they're always there, right? And he wrote that it was 2 years ago at a show in Southern Indiana, a house show. And they just saw a random flyer for it and they showed up. And he said that throughout the show, and he mentioned me by name, said that I kept talking about the TV tapings or whatever. And that his daughter loved the show so much, it was like, we've got to go see these TV tapes. So they started coming to a few, and then they started coming to everyone. And now in the last 2 years, they've only missed 3 shows or something like that.
Oh, wow.
And it was cool to see how that happened. You know what I mean? And I always try to do my best to make sure, if not the whole crowd, at least there's somebody that's going to have a unique experience for the night. You know what I mean? Because I can remember when I was a kid and it was WWE and whatever. I remember the first time I high-fived somebody at the rail. I remember, the first match I saw, or what I remember the first wrestling match I ever saw live, and I still remember what I could hear the wrestlers saying in the ring, antagonizing the fans. It was George South. George South was the first guy. I don't know if you ever heard George South, but he's legendary, enhancement guy and trainer or whatever. And he was in there and he was just talking about his hair, but I still remember, I was 7 years old and I still to this day can hear his voice saying what he was saying about his hair. So it's about making experiences like that, and to hear him, or not hear him, but see him post that and use my name and say that it was me talking about the thing that got him there. That very same venue, I remember somebody else did the same thing when I was talking to his kids, and he posted on Facebook and tagged me in it. It was like, oh, Eric was so nice talking to my kids, whatever. It's about making experiences. So if I get a lot more of a kick out of people saying stuff like that than saying, oh, well, you did great announcing that match. It's like, that's just part of my gig. It's the other part that really makes me happy. I try to start off every house show with, letting one of the kids do Brian Kinnison's line, which is Eric, my man, tell him who's fighting, let a kid do it, give them a little, microphone or whatever, and just make them feel special. You know what I mean? If they can leave going, that's so cool, I had that moment, then they'll come back and their parents will come back and they might be like fans. So those are the kind of experiences that I enjoy, and that's a bigger compliment to me, if that makes any sense.
Definitely, yeah. Which wrestler would you say has giving you the best advice and or compliment?
Well, of course I can't talk about it without talking about Al Snow, obviously. But because I don't even, it's like I don't even see him as that WWE legend anymore. I'm not in a bad way, but what I'm saying is I get so much feedback from him and learn so much from him on a daily basis. Sometimes I just forget who he is. You know what I mean? I have to, because we become friends and I can talk to, I call him best friend, that's just a joke on my buddy AJ McKay, who's always like, you're Al's favorite, right? So I started yeah, he's my best friend. And so now anytime I see Al, I'll come up and like, hey, best friend. And he's like, hey, best friend. And we just move on. And anybody that hears that is always like, what? And the fact that happens is really cool. But in all reality, he is a wealth of knowledge. And I will listen to him teach wrestlers, what they're doing, just because I want to hear what he's saying to them, because I might learn something from him, you know what I mean? So
Right.
Al, of course, is the greatest. As far as anybody else, I did get a really good compliment from David Pensner, who legend. I mean, he did Nitro and he did, TNA for years and all that stuff. And I was able one year to do the Impact's throwback throwdown shows that they did at Davis Arena, and I was able to announce. Became the personality Artichoke Jenkins. That was the that was the personality I used, and this was real cheesy. Everything was like from the '80s, and all the characters were from the '80s. And what was so cool is like Penzer, who's their normal ring announcer, who wasn't on the show, was like tweeting about me during that show, and we had never met. He didn't know anything about me, and he was just like, "My goal is to meet Artichoke Jenkins someday." And to see that was just like, that was a big compliment. You know what I mean? That he was saying that.
Yeah.
I'm literally doing his job. Like, I'm taking his, like, I don't know if he wasn't booked or he just wasn't available or what, what it was. But the fact that I came in and was doing what he normally does and he's tweeting about it. Okay. And so then the next year I went and I did some extra work for Impact TNA, and I got to meet him, and it was fun. So, and he even called me out to the live crowd and pointed me out. So.
That's awesome. What was that character based off of that you did?
So the way that it happened, first of all, so it was Daniel Spencer, of course, who just already popped in here earlier, is he's our head referee for OVW. He's also the head referee for TNA. And he had told me throughout the week that he was like, I don't know if Penzer's coming. I don't know. We might need a ring announcer. So he had told me and AJ McKay, you guys, why don't you show up? And I'll make sure you get in and you can sit in on the production meeting. And then, we'll see if we need but there was no guarantee, none. So, of course, I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking like, okay, well, everybody's doing this cheesy 80s stuff. Like, I'm not just going to be a ring announcer. Like, I've got to fit in with everybody. So, I was prepared to do whatever I needed to do. Well, I sit in on the production meeting and it gets done. And Jimmy Jacobs, who was one of the producers there at the time, he looks over at me and AJ, and he's like, which one of you is my ring announcer? And I kind of looked at AJ and he looked at me. I was like, oh, I guess one of us is doing this, right? And AJ just looked at me. He's like, you're doing it. You do it. He goes, I'll produce. I'll do whatever you ring announce. I'm like, okay. So I went to Jimmy, and I went to I think Josh Matthews, and was just kind of like, do you have any ideas like what you want me to do? He's like, yeah, whatever. And so they didn't really have anything specific. So I said, okay. I said, what I was going to do is, and I had the same kind of facial hair I think I had now. I shaved it down and just to the mustache. And then I combed my hair like really far to the side, and then just put on the black tux with the bow tie, and came back out, and I was like, what do you think? And they were like, great, perfect. I was like, I would like to use the name Artichoke Jenkins. He was like, why? I said, I remember back when I was watching WCW Saturday Night, there was a radio guy from Atlanta that used to do the ring announcing on there, and his name was Rhubarb Jones. And I remember Jim Ross always back, let's take it up to Rhubarb Jones, right? And so that was my play off of his name. Rhubarb Jones was Artichoke Jenkins, and so that was it. And they were like, I like it, go up there and do it. So I just went in there and acted goofy, and I was probably, I don't know, 30 pounds heavier than I am now. I looked like Paul Bearer. Everybody said I looked like Paul Bearer.
Yes.
I was like making faces at everybody, and I was, doing all this stuff. And so whatever, it was just, I just had a great time. And like Matt Stryker and Josh Matthews were throwing it to me, and let's take it back up to Artichoke, which they didn't even have to mention my name or anything. But, I'm like, if this is going to be this over the top cheesy show, let's do it right. You know what I mean? So that's kind of how that came about. And it was the only time I ever did it. but I was always open to do it again if they wanted me to. And I still am.
Right.
I'm around. If they need artichoke chickens, I'm around. But it was funny. I did go back and did do extra work again. And so not only did I get to talk to Penzer, but like one of the other producers saw me and needed me for a segment, and he was just like, Artichoke. Like he just remembered me by that name, and I was like, "Yeah, what's up?" He goes, "I'm sorry, I know that you're not your real name." I'm like, "No, it's cool, no problem." So, but that's it. That's my one night on pay-per-view claim to fame with Impact Wrestling.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I thought your character Artichoke was based off of Paul Bearer.
Yeah, it wasn't supposed to be. I was just plump and looked like Paul Bearer, and then later on that Halloween, the very next year, I was just like, I might as well go as Paul Bearer, and I think I pulled it off pretty well. Kind of looked like Paul Bearer, and then Linda Kay, who's our other ring announcer, was the Linda Taker, and so that was our Halloween costume. Which reminds me, I need to start working on this year's. I don't think I know what I'm going to do yet, so I need some ideas.
Yeah. What was like some of the other stuff that you did for Impact? Because you mentioned you did another segment. If you don't mind talking about that.
So I've actually done two other segments when I was an extra. Like when you go do extra work for them, it's just kind of sit around, do whatever they need, and if they need you on a pre-tape, cool, they'll pull you back. So that first one where he came up to me and he was like, Artichoke. Um, he said, I need somebody to be a swinger. And you could say no. And I was like, I'm down, whatever, let's do it. So they pulled me into a backstage segment with Johnny Swinger, and he was promoting his school, which he was calling Swinger's Dungeon, and the whole premise of the pre-tape was everybody was kind of misunderstanding what the business was. I was one of those people standing behind him, and I was actually with our referee Charlene McKenzie was in that scene with me, so I had to text my wife that night, and I said, may or may not be doing a scene on national TV with Charlene as swingers. And my wife's just like, it's another day of work, whatever. See you when you get home. So there was that one. And then I was in another segment just in the background as during the Learning Tree segments that Brian Myers was doing. Before Jericho was doing the Learning Tree, Brian Myers was doing it in Impact. And so yeah, I was just kind of in the background in one of those videos.
Nice, yeah. And also that night of the Impact Wrestling throwback throwdown, it was Rohit Raju's last night. What was it like for him to be his last night in Impact Wrestling there and just
I don't know. I mean, honestly, until you said that, I don't think I knew that was his last night. I mean, to be honest with you, it was like, as far as the inner workings of stuff, I mean, I was just trying to do my thing out there, and not really knowing much of the ins and outs of the backstage area. The only other cool thing that I could say was, as a ring announcer, sometimes you have to go around and get everybody's information, where you from, what's your nicknames, all this stuff. The only other thing that to me that stands out from that night was going to all the people, and since they were not going by their normal personas, now they are all these other weird characters. Nobody knew any of their information, so we had to make up a lot of it, like hometowns and all this stuff, so that was the other like fun behind the scenes thing. But other than that, I mean, I've worked on a few shows with Rohit. He's always cool to me, but to be honest with you, I didn't even realize that was his last show that he did.
Yeah. If you don't mind, do you have any thoughts on the Vince McMahon document that came out recently?
Watched the whole thing. I thought it was really good. I I feel like we still don't know a lot that we didn't already know. I mean, I didn't want it to be a total like, hit piece on him or anything like that, but I don't really feel like we learned anything super new. There was a couple moments I think we did, but for the most part, I felt like it was not as much about him as it was the business in general. And for wrestling fans like us, I think we've heard these stories. We know about the Montreal screw job, and we know about the Monday Night Wars, and we know, I felt like we kind of already knew about all that stuff. But I guess if you're telling the full story, you kind of have to tell some of that. I don't know. I just feel like there's parts missing. Whatever happened in that whole situation, I mean, one, I don't think anybody can be real surprised about it when you really come down to it. And I know, he says in there that Mr. McMahon is different than Vince McMahon, and everybody else says no, they're basically the same person. I think it's somewhere in between that. And if the stuff that he's accused of is true, it's awful. And nobody should have those things, done to them in any workplace or in life. By the same respect, you can still talk about him on a professional level. And had it not been for Vince McMahon, the two of us aren't sitting here talking. So,
Right.
that's kind of my feeling on it.
Yeah. Was there ever a time in your career you ever got like kicked out of a wrestling show you were working at?
Nah, I'm a good boy. I'm a good boy. I don't. I don't.
Yeah.
I'm a rule follower for the most part, so no, I can't say that I've ever been kicked out of anything.
Yeah. Is there any times you've witnessed that happening?
Oh, people getting kicked out? Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
It certainly happened. I've seen. Being in Kentucky, like I said, there's a lot of rules, and I've seen the commission come in and kick people out. I've seen the commission come in and drug test people, and that doesn't always work out great. I've had the commission come in and then randomly draw me as one of the people to be drug tested, and the promoters couldn't be happier because they knew I was going to be clean as a whistle. But yeah, and then some of the other. I mean, some of the stuff's been documented on even in wrestlers of some things that happened and that I was around for. But we don't need to go back through all that. We've mentioned both of the people involved earlier in this podcast, so it's all good.
What would you do if a crowd member came out of the crowd and attacked you? And have you ever witnessed that happening before to any other wrestlers or just in general?
Thankfully, no. I've not witnessed that. There were a couple times when I got word, like, and usually I'm the first the line of defense because they're always like coming to me because I'm the one that they can usually get to and going, hey, watch out for this guy or whatever. I've had a couple moments where I had to keep my eye on a couple people just because I just didn't know. It was either a house show and they'd had too much to drink, or they were talking around the crowd and people were like, hey, this guy, watch him. And on TV at OVW, you don't see it too much because it's, everybody kind of is there for the same reason to enjoy the show. But I have seen a couple people that I was like, I got my eye on them just in case. Now, what would I do? I don't know. But I know that I would do whatever I could to try to protect my brothers and sisters. So if it meant for the first time me trying to take somebody down, I'm going to try to take somebody down. You know what I mean? So I don't know if I could, but I'm going to try. So trust me, I've sat there many a times, like looking like, if this happens, what am I going to do? And I'm like, okay,
right.
I got some ideas. It may not be pretty, but I'm going to try something. So I don't know. But luckily, knock on wood, I've never had to worry about that.
Right. If you could work for any wrestling company right now, what company would you like to work for?
To be honest with you, I don't really see myself you know, doing anything but working for OVW at this point. I mean, I don't really have aspirations to tour the world. Like I said, I like travel, but I don't want to. I'm not going to leave my family to go and be on the road 200 dates a year. You know, like would I love to do one thing for WWE? Absolutely. I would love to just step in a WWE ring and hold a microphone, even if it's one time. You know what I mean? Even if they had me
Right.
come backstage and serve catering, I'd do it just to be there and just to see it in operation. You know what I mean? Because I'm intrigued by the way things operate more than actually, you know, meeting stars or whatever. Like I don't like I just want to see. I would love to see how it operates. You know, and so that would be cool. You know, AEW is the same way. I'm not as big a fan of AEW, but I got a ton of friends that work there that are doing great things, and so you know, I wish the storytelling was better with AEW. Um, and it's back and forth. It's not as consistent, but whatever. I would still love to be just in that mix just to see it in operation. I think if I was going to work for any other company, um, you know, on a regular basis, like a bigger company, I would say maybe TNA because you know it can still be done the way that they do their taping schedule. It can still be done with your regular job. Um, you know, because
Hmm.
they're touring every few weeks and then they'll tape you know a couple weeks at a time. So which that would be awesome, and I'd love to have the chance to do that if possible. But really, I love working for OVW, and if the chance was ever there for me to make that my full time job, 100% would do it. I would I would do whatever they needed me to do. You know, promotion behind the scenes, whatever. You know, I mean, I think my ultimate goal, I would love to be able to be the you know, media coordinator, community outreach, doing the kind of stuff that we talked about earlier, where it's like you just reach out to local groups and charities and nonprofits and try to get OVW involved and get our name out there. Reach out to all the media outlets and all the markets that we go to and get our stars on there, you know, on the more podcasts like yours. And I would love to be the guy that coordinates all that and gets our name out there. You know, and one of these days, I think OVW is going to be big enough. I'll have that opportunity. But until then, I'll just, you know, I'll do what I do, and that's where my allegiance is. That's where my loyalty is.
Right. Yeah. You mentioned WWE. Have you ever done anything with the WWE before, such as like anything backstage, even?
No, no, I have not. I mean, a lot of my friends have done that. It's just not. It's one of those things. They're not looking for me, you know, and that's fine. I don't care. Like I said, I'm not trying to get a job, but even on their, you know, all the things that they're looking for in a an extra they're it's not me. You know what I mean? So that's fine, and I'm fine with that. Um, but I've got a lot of friends that do, and a lot of friends that have been used on TV, um, and some that you know who knows might be there one day, and I'll be so proud. If they make it there, I'd be as proud if I was there. Um, so I don't know. Wait and see. I'm very supportive of my friends and very loyal to my friends, and there's a few of them that may be closer than you think. So I don't know. I'm just waiting.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Would you rather join DX, NWO, APA, or BWO?
I feel like my vibe's more the BWO. I but I could see myself as like a mouthpiece or a manager for any of them really. Um,
Yeah.
DX was almost DX was almost too cool for you know my former managing persona, which was Brad Bacon. The big deal Brad Bacon was the name I used when I was doing that. So, but I feel like the BWO is probably more my style. Yeah, or I could see myself getting managing but being bullied by the APA. That could be something.
Yeah, I could definitely see BWO. If you could have any band or singer perform your theme song, who would you want that to be?
I would. Well, my favorite singer of all time is Garth Brooks. There's some stuff out there right now. I don't know if it's true. Whatever. I still love him. Whether I don't know if he'd be perfect for theme music so much. So I would tend to lean toward either Big and Rich or Luke Combs. I think now. I think those would be like maybe Jelly Roll. I don't know, but Jelly Roll's been involved like a lot now, so he'll probably end up doing theme music for somebody.
Yeah, those are good ones. Yeah.
Eric Church would be another one too. Eric Church would be a good one.
Mm, yeah. During some of like the wrestling training that you did and like the little stuff that you did, what is like one of your least favorite wrestling moves to have happen to you or receive?
I will say I and I don't recommend this, but like when I was very young and I used to like to get in there and I went from being the announcer to kind of being the bad guy commissioner slash manager, right? And one of their favorite things to do was like to parade out all the baby faces and have them all give me their finisher. And I was fine with it. I was like, bring it on, let's do it. And one guy had just a clothesline. One guy had like a Michinoku driver, which looked devastating but was great. I mean, put me down perfectly. Never worried about it. I remember one night there was this dude, and God rest his soul. I don't think he's around anymore. His name was Bull, and he came in the ring, and everybody's like calling their moves, and I'm like, okay, cool, do it, do it, do it. He bends over and he goes, Batista bomb, and I was like, excuse me, Batista bomb. Okay. So I had obviously never taken any kind of power bomb, any kind of Batista bomb, nothing. And it wasn't a Batista bomb. I think he got my big butt up and just dropped it. And I landed on my shoulder, my arm. Like, never doing that again. That is not something I'm ready for. So yeah. So that was probably the most. That's one I was not a fan of. But that's not even the most pain. The most pain was getting out of the ring one night, just simply getting out of the ring on a gym floor, and I was managing the tag team champions. One of them dropped their belt on that tile floor on the gym, and so it was like
Mm.
metal side down on that floor, and I stepped on it, and my leg went that way, and my body went that way, and I hurt my knee so
Mm.
bad. I couldn't even get up and walk. I think I swam to the curtain on the floor, and everybody's laughing like, "Oh, that was the funniest thing ever." I'm like, "No, seriously, I can't." So, while the other one was
Yeah.
pretty painful taking a move, the other one was the most painful thing, and it didn't even involve a move.
Right. What has been the hardest move you have tried to do to someone before, if you have tried to do anything?
My finishing move is a count the lights, man. That's no. I'll be honest with you. The hardest move to do is to throw a punch. I mean, it really is. It's you like if you throw a good punch, like Jerry Lawler throws a great punch, Jeff Jarrett throws a great punch. There's a lot of people that do. You throw a bad punch, that can ruin everything. And in the few times I've been in the ring, it's like I didn't know how to do much offense. So, what they expect you to do is do a lot of punches, a lot of kicks, right? It took me a long
Yeah.
time. I wouldn't be confident today throwing a working punch in the ring because you're either afraid it's going to look terrible or it's going to like hurt somebody. You know what I mean? So I'll say it to anybody. I mean, one of the hardest moves to perform is throwing a punch, and if you don't throw a good punch, don't throw one. Just do something else.
Right. What usually gets you hyped for a wrestling show that you're going to be part of?
Man, I tell you what, the pre-show music, whether it's a crowd in there, just knowing that you're about to go out, and honestly, something as simple as just seeing the wrestling ring. I can be around it all afternoon, and I could sit up on the apron and talk to my buddies. I could do what and it's nothing. The minute you come through that curtain and the lights are on and the crowd's in there, that ring now becomes something different. It's not just a piece of wood and some metal. It's like now this is it. You know what I mean? This is it. This is the place where it all goes down. It was like when I was a kid, it was the same way. You'd walk through the doors and any venue that you're in, like the minute you go through whatever corridor it is to get to that main, arena bowl and you see that ring, that makes it all real. And that'll get you hyped. And so that's it for me. It's like I still think about walking into Louisville Gardens when I was a kid and like you see the ring and it's like, there it is. There it is. It's where it all goes down.
Right. What is your favorite thing to do after all the shows?
It's hard for me to come down from the shows. It's such a big, adrenaline rush. Like even if because I used to when I was doing morning radio, I mean I would get up, leave the house by 4 o'clock. I would go do radio. I would work all day, and it was a 45-minute drive to my radio station. So I'd drive all the way in the middle of the night, pretty much, to go to my station. I'd do my show. I'd work all day. I'd drive 45 minutes back. I'd pick up my kids, bring them home, have them do their homework, get my stuff together, go to the arena, be there all day, then do the show, get done with the show, maybe stay after for a meeting. And it's still like I still wasn't going straight home and like passing out because you're just on this adrenaline high. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I like to go out if I can, at least for an hour or so, even if it's to just go chill with some of the people that I'm closest with in OVW, and have a drink, have something to eat. If I can do that, I enjoy doing that. And if I do come straight home, usually I don't go straight to bed. I'll like go back and watch part of the show from that night, or I'll sit there and get some fast food on the way home and sit down and eat it and just kind of unwind, I guess. So.
Right, yeah. What has been your most favorite venue you have got to work in?
Um, there's probably two, um, maybe three that I really love. I mean, I love the Hot Point Davis Arena. It's just got so much history in it, which is cool. But I think the Evansville Coliseum that's a historic venue. It was one of the weekly stops for Memphis. So to be in there and that's where I've announced people like Jerry Lawler and stuff like that. So that was kind of a cool throwback to that. But knowing guys like Andre the Giant had been through there and everything else, that was really awesome. Um, so that I would say is right up there. Honestly, I loved doing the Pikeville Appalachian Wireless Arena that we just did because that's really the first time we've ever really done an arena, and I hope there's more of those in the future. Um, the only one that I wish I could do would be the Louisville Gardens, which that building's been closed for years, and such a historic venue. I graduated in that building, and I've seen concerts, and I've seen wrestling and everything in there. I just wish they would open it back up, do something with it, so I could just at least one time perform in that building. I think that would be my dream come true.
Yeah, definitely. It'd be cool to if they opened it and you could even like possibly in the near future even like retire there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You
Has there
want me to
been
retire?
any?
You trying to push
No,
me into
no, no,
retirement?
no, no.
I'm not ready to retire yet.
Yeah. Has there been any time you have accidentally like broken out of your persona or like accidentally like made mistakes on the microphone?
Yeah, I've made mistakes many times on the microphone. That's just what it comes down to, and that's okay. I don't care. I mean, in my radio days, I always said that it's not about messing up because you're going to mess up. It's about how you recover. One of the worst I ever had, and because I don't like to use cue cards on TV, I just don't. I mean, I don't care if you do, but I just don't do it. And back when I first started, it was like maybe the second set of TV tapings I did for OVW. There was a big 4-on-4 tag match, big 8-man tag match, right? And we used to do our announcements before the music ever hit. So we'd make the announcement, then the music would hit, and the people come out. And I just blanked. I think I got through 2 people and then forgot the rest of them. And
Mm.
I just didn't. I mean, I was like all over the place, and I had to like reach down and grab my notes and read, and it was awful. It was awful. And I think Al actually was in my ear going, "Are you drunk?" I'm like, "No, I swear I'm not. I just forgot. Like I didn't know who was coming out. Whatever. So now we've changed a little bit. So I try not to announce anybody until I see them, and then by that point I know. And I mean, AJ McKay will tell me I just a steel trap. I like know everything, and I think I do. But most of our roster, I've got it pretty well. What their hometown is, what their nickname is, and all that stuff. I'm pretty good at that. But that was probably one of the worst. I can still remember it was in Jeffersonville before we were back open from COVID, so we were doing our tapings over in Jeffersonville at the arena. And it just kind of all fell apart.
Yeah, that would be embarrassing. What has been one of like the most scariest or most dangerous incidents that you have seen or have happened to you in your wrestling career?
I'm trying to remember. There's definitely been some times that um, there were some injuries that happened. There's some that have happened, at OVW, um, and we just try to take care of people the best we can, when it happens. But usually you can tell, and like I said, it's all about communication. So if the referee's communicating to me, if I can relay that info, whatever needs to be done. Um, I can't even think like specifically what it would have been. Maybe Manny Domingo, I know, went down with a pretty bad knee injury not long ago. And I know Tony Bizzo did a few years back. Went down with a knee injury during a match, and like I said, you just kind of try to get it over with and move on. I guess for me, the most dangerous thing was probably that knee injury that I told you about. And
Yeah.
one other time, I remember I did get hit with a cookie sheet and like just started bleeding like crazy. And it was just a random thing. I was wearing a baseball cap and had there's a little button on top, and so it
Oh
just
yeah.
hit perfectly where the button went into my head and just gushed. And and in Kentucky, at that time you weren't allowed to bleed. Like, and if you were bleeding, you had to get out of there. So like that was going to ruin the whole story. Went backstage, got it all stitched up, still came back out. I was a manager at the time. I was handcuffed to one of like the top baby faces, and it basically on camera looked like we just held hands and walked to the back. So it was like, it was awful. But we had to get it cleaned up and whatever. So it's fine. But I wouldn't say it was dangerous. It was just kind of like, oops,
Right. Is there any sort of a period of time that you've had to stay out of action for wrestling?
Yeah, I mean, I several times I thought I was just done. I mean, I was every time I'd move to a new place, I just thought, well, that was fun. I guess we're just done doing that. When I moved from Bowling Green to like Murray, Kentucky to do radio, and didn't think anything would happen. Then I ended up with a great group of people there called Old School Wrestling, the Phillips family that was running down there, and that was one of my best experiences ever and where I learned the most. And so then I left there, started a family. I was in Evansville, Indiana, thought I was done again. Um, didn't expect to really do anything. And that's when I got a call from Jamie Dundee, who we talked about earlier, who he didn't know my history of wrestling business, but he was just calling to promote his shows at the Coliseum. And then once I talked to him, I was like, hey, by the way, I've done this. He's like, oh, great, come on. So then that's how I started doing those shows. And then from there, I moved to Louisville and thought I was done again. And reached out to OVW at one point, didn't hear anything back. And out of the blue, Al Snow calls me one day, and the rest is history. So it's like every time I think I'm done and I'm out, it just draws me back in. You can't get away from it.
Right. If you got told you couldn't medically do like announcing or commentating because something medically went wrong with like your speaking, what would you do for the rest of your life?
Wow. Depressing. Because I mean, considering that I talk for a living and do a lot of that, with wrestling. I don't know. I'd probably find a way to still work backstage and still help the boys and girls and do what I could. I don't know. That's tough.
Right.
I might lose it tonight. This keeps going.
What are some of the achievements you have achieved so far in your career, if there's any that you have achieved?
No, I mean, no awards, no titles, just the ability to do it. That's it. I mean, the ability to work in the sport that I love. I've just been blessed. I'm blessed to be able to do this on so many levels and to continue to be a part of OVW and to watch the rise. No pun intended, that's the name of our show, but it's like just to watch the rise from when I came in to, the new ownership, to the filming of the documentary, to the series coming out on Netflix, to now the explosion and nationwide and global, appreciation of OVW, and who knows what's next. So really, I mean, that's the award for me, is being able to be a part of it and to say that I played a little part.
Right, yeah. Do you feel like you are worthy enough to be part of any type of wrestling Hall of Fame?
No, I don't think that'll ever happen, and I'm fine if it doesn't. No, I don't. Like I said, I've played such a small part in and everything, and even when it comes to announcing, like say OVW came up with an official Hall of Fame, which we've given honors before, but I mean, there's no way I even crawl without the sprinting of folks like Jim Cornette and Dean Hill and even Al on the mic, which he was, and Kenny Bolin and all these guys that, did the job before me. Like, forget it. Like I'm just a blip on OVW's radar. But again, I don't need that. I get all the praise I need just by going out there and being a part of it.
Yeah. Who are 5 wrestlers you would put into the WWE Hall of Fame that are not in there yet that you think deserve it?
The Rock's going to be in. I'm not even going to say him because he'll be in very soon. I'm positive. But I will say Demolition. I will say Rick Martel. I'll go back and I'll give Sid a nod on that one. And really Cyndi Lauper. Like, I don't think she made it into the celebrity. Like, she's the first celebrity that should be in there, and I don't know why that hasn't happened, but that would be mine. Demolition, Rick Martel, Sid. We'll go Cyndi Lauper, and who else did I say? Did I miss one? I don't know.
The Rock.
The Rock. The Rock's the other, which he'll be in. I mean, we all need to be in. But those are the main ones I think that are that are glaring omissions at this point. I mean, if you're going to put in, you know, and they put in people that are not WWE people. Mickey James is another one. Mickey's overdue, and
Mm-hmm.
she may. This might be the year. Her and Victoria both, I think, are due, and you know they'll be in there before too long.
Right. And I'm so glad somebody finally said Cyndi Lauper, because oh, jeez.
It's a glaring omission. If you look at a celebrity wing, it's like how do you have it without Cyndi Lauper?
Right. For like the first ever celebrity wing, it should have been her.
Yeah.
I'm just speechless about that. They haven't put her in yet. But I mean, I know that they ask, and I know some of it's if they want to or not. So I don't know if they may have asked her before and she may have declined.
You know,
But
yeah, who knows?
What are 4 words you would describe your announcing and commentating persona in wrestling?
Man, I don't know. I mean, it's just me. That's it. It's just me. I don't know what else to say. Like, you know, even you know, and you may hear if you watch Overdrive, you know, even tonight's episode, you know, you may hear a little edge to me. Just trying to play off a new broadcast partner, Carmen Michael, who's you know I'm not used to working with. So just trying something different. You know, I wouldn't call myself a heel at all. Just I got a little edge, got a little, you know, just pensive thinking, maybe. But no, it's just really what you hear out there is me. That's what you always heard on the radio is me. You know, the only time it wasn't me is like Artichoke Jenkins was not me. It was just me being silly. And my old managing personality, Brad Bacon, was just, you know, that wasn't me because, you know, I don't see myself as a mean dude. I'm a pretty nice guy. But everything else that I do it's just me. I mean, I'm Eric. You know, I'm out. The voice of the valley is just a name, you know, and it's funny because I gave myself the name for branding, but when people call me that, it's like anything else. I'm just like, come on. I got friends of mine. They're like, come on, you're the voice of the valley. I'm like, give me a break. It's just on my merch.
Right. Well, then, what are 4 words you would describe your managing persona?
Oh, okay. So Brad Bacon, the big deal, Brad Bacon. Yeah, 4 words: big deal and big jerk. There you go. I use big
All right.
twice.
Well, what are 3 things that annoy you the most in wrestling?
I would say people who think they're more deserving than they are. Um, just you know, just going through stuff at OVW. I mean, if you have patience and you do what you're told, um, good things will come to you. And I think there's prime examples of that in OVW. If you really look at it, there's lots of people in OVW who have come in who have just been unselfish and just did what needed to be done, and because of that, have gotten to a good spot. There are other people that you know sometimes for story's sake you're rushed into things, and some of them have proved to work out, some of them don't. And if you're not ready for that, and you're not ready to be humbled later on, like maybe you get a big shot at first and then you're brought back. If you're not ready for that, then you're not ready for this business. But it drives me crazy when people think that they deserve something and then they want to complain about it. It's like, listen, it's real simple. Come and do your job, do what you're supposed to do, and make the improvements that you're told to make. And that's really all you need to do. So that's number 1. Number 2, just not understanding storytelling. Like, and people, that's the thing. And also not learning from your past mistakes. I think that's the third. I think the third is like, I watch Al try to give so many people advice. I watch Doug Basham try to give people advice. I watch Maria. I watch like everybody try to give people advice. And you've got all of this advice around you. And when you watch somebody being told, this is what we want you to do, and this is what's going to make you better, and then they don't take that advice and make the same mistakes again, that's so. But it's all about growing. It's all about learning, and I think if you can, you come back and you think like, I had the best match ever, and then Al gives you that reality check. Like it may hurt your feelings because you thought it was better than that, but it's also he's doing that to make you better. So take what he says, apply it next time, and then you get an attaboy. You know what I mean? Or an attagirl, whatever.
Right. What are like 3 things that you like the most and enjoy the most about wrestling?
It's entertainment, and it always has been, and it's just, it takes you away from the everyday life. It takes you away from the things that bother you in your life, whether you're stressed about something, you're stressed about work, the politics on TV driving you crazy, whatever it is. You look at the hurt in the world, and you look at the people that have, been hurt by these hurricanes, and it's just like, man, it's awful. Like so much awful stuff in the world. You turn on wrestling, and it's just a different world altogether. And for the people that don't like wrestling, or the people that make fun of it for whatever it is, it's like you don't realize what you're missing. Like you don't realize like all this stuff's going on. You can go and you can watch, serious stuff happen that has a resolution. You can watch funny stuff happen that would never happen in real life, and you could see a arena full of people going crazy over a sport that's free to time. There's nothing like it.
Mm-hmm. Right. If you could go anywhere in the world, I know you mentioned that you're not really into wanting to go around the world, but if you could and got asked to go anywhere in the world, where would you like to go?
Oh, now, I mean, I don't mind. Like, I'll do a couple one-offs or a short tour, for sure if I'm asked. I'd love to go to Europe. I think the scene in like UK and stuff is just so huge. I mean, they are underserved with pro wrestling, and because you see it when AEW goes there, when WWE goes there, and you just see the crowds and how excited they are and how loud they are. I would love to go to Europe and experience that. Um, you know, I don't know that a lot of people want to go to Japan, and I just don't like. I like Japanese wrestling, and I can respect it, but like I need a crowd that's loud, and like Japanese crowds typically aren't. So I think the UK is probably where I'd like to go.
Yeah, definitely, because when you see WWE every time when they go places like that, the crowds are like insane, like really loud, and it's just awesome to see. What would you say has been the best fan art you have received in your wrestling career, if you have received any?
I haven't received any fan art that I can remember. Um, Take that back. There's probably been a few times I've gotten like a handwritten card or something like that, but no major fan art. But I will say, and I'll throw out this name. A guy named Joe Slack is the best artist around. This guy is so good. He has done like sketchings of like all the OVW stars over the years. And Joe's not doing so well health wise, but he's like a lifetime OVW fan. So I'll send out some cool stuff to him because I mean that guy is so good. I mean his artwork used to be on the walls there at OVW, and we still have it backstage. But man, he's very very good.
Yeah. Out of all the wrestlers, who would you say has like the best wrestling gear in your opinion?
Talk about the people of OVW or just any in general.
In general.
Oh man, I tell you what, I'm pretty impressed with all the females on the gear that they have. Like, cause I mean, you think about back in the day, like, and again, you're probably too young, but you're a studied gentleman. You have seen a lot of the old stuff. Like when the women used to wrestle, man, they pretty much just put on like your mom's bathing suit, one piece bathing suit, and go out there and wrestle.
Yeah.
And like the females today, I mean, and the people that are making their gear, and some of them making their own, like like Bianca Belair makes her own gear, which I think is awesome. Um, but I mean, it's impressive. It's impressive some of this gear and the intricate details that they have. But so really, any of the women, I mean, I think it's amazing, and they have to, I mean, knowing this from being there with some of the girls, like they have to do some extra work to make sure everything stays where it's supposed to stay, and stuff too. So
Yeah.
there's a lot to it. But I will say the other one's not. This is a personal one because I haven't mentioned them yet. But the Outrunners have the best gear in the
Oh
game,
yeah.
and they have since the beginning of time, since they were training guys like superstar Billy Graham. You know what it's all about. So big ups. I am an honorary Outrunner, in case you didn't know. So big ups to Truth and Turb.
Yeah, I actually met them a couple years ago at here in Wisconsin for a show. They came right. It was before they got like way famous as they are now. They had like a couple of dark matches on AEW before they came, but now they're like, I don't know if they're signed to AEW. Sometimes it says they are, and sometimes it doesn't. So
Yeah.
I don't know,
Yeah,
but
they I believe they are, and they're it's only getting bigger for them at this point. I think we're just getting ready to see them completely take off, which is great because I've known both of those guys a long time. Of course, they are the youngest men alive. But I knew some guys that weren't named Truth and Turbo um, that were some pretty awesome guys too early on. So very very excited for all of the fame that those guys are receiving.
definitely. What does your meal prep look like for you on a day of like a wrestling show? If you have a certain meal prep that you do.
You say as I'm eating a fruit gem right now. Yeah, the you're asking the wrestling questions to the big fat announcer. So no, there's no meal prep. What I usually do, since I know it's gonna be a long night, is I usually stop at the gas station that's on the way, and they have awesome buffalo chicken wraps at the gas station. I know that sounds crazy. That's my meal prep. I grab a buffalo chicken wrap at the gas station, an energy drink, and boom, here I go. Luckily, I don't have to take bumps now.
Right.
That's my meal prep.
And
If you are looking for meal prep, get with my man Ryan Von Rocket because he does some great meal prep. Got all the macros on it for you. It's high protein, low carb. Ryan Von Rocket's the man. Check him out.
yeah, I mean, you get to eat that in front of all the wrestlers.
I usually eat it in the car before I get there. They don't see my buffalo chicken.
What is your favorite current and old wrestlers theme song from any company, any wrestling?
Cody Rhodes is killing it. I love that song. the only man to ever use the same song in like 6 or 7 different organizations. Pretty amazing. And it's,
Right.
I mean, gets the crowd going. Love it. And I'm still a sucker for Real American. Like I said, I wasn't a Hulk Hogan guy, but Real American's like, it's just, it gives me the vibes of when I was a kid, and just every pay per view going off the air with him just posing and that music just playing. Real American's the best.
For sure. If you could go back in time and tell your younger self something motivational towards being a wrestling announcer, commentator, and everything that you are now, what would that be?
Man, I think I would just I don't even know, because if I tell my younger self anything, it'd just be like, just get ready for the ride, man, because you're gonna do some cool stuff. Like you're gonna do some cool stuff that you would have never imagined. So really, that's it. As far as advice, I don't want to hit that whole Back to the Future, vortex where I change the way things happen, because I think it's pretty cool the way they all happen. To be honest with you.
Right. If you could go back and revisit any year of your wrestling career, what year would that be?
Of my wrestling career, wrestling, I'll just say my wrestling fandom. I'd probably like to go back to about 96 or 97 in my fandom, just to go back to see how crazy it was with the Monday Night Wars starting. I was in high school and flipping back and forth between the two, just watching what was happening and people jumping back and forth. Like I would love to go back to that time and just relive it, because it was a good time to be a wrestling fan, man. It was like it had never been bigger. Everybody was talking about wrestling at that point. But there's definitely been times where
Right.
it was like you want to hide that you're a wrestling fan, and that was one time you didn't care. Like 316 shirts, NWO shirts, everybody had them.
Yeah. If you could come with a warning label, either for your managing persona or even what you do now as an announcer and commentator, what would it say?
Uh, Caution. Seems like a nice guy, but will rib you when you least expect it. But only if I like you. I'm only gonna rib somebody if I like
Right. What is your favorite wrestling quote?
you. My favorite wrestling quote. Oh man, there's so many of them. There's so many great ones out there. Um, I would probably say, and I love the Dusty Hard Times thing is so good because it's just like off the cuff, and you could tell it's off the cuff. His whole Hard Times promo was so good. Um, I do like. I got one. I don't know why this just popped into my head, but this video, I swear, doesn't exist anywhere. You cannot find it anywhere. And I meant to talk to Mick Foley. Mick Foley was at the arena a couple times, and I wanted to talk to him about this. I'm gonna remind myself next time I see him to ask him about this. When Foley turned heel briefly in WWE when the ECW thing was going on, he had a program with Terry Funk, and Terry Funk did an online video. It was just on WWE.com, and me and my buddies used to quote this all the time, and I don't know it word for word, but he's like, Mick, I don't think I want to call you Mick Foley anymore. Maybe I'll come up with a new name for you, like Satchel Ass. He started screaming, Satchel Ass, and so we used to do that all the time. And I mean, it's amazing to me that YouTube does not have that. It's nowhere to be found. Like nobody would even believe us if we hadn't seen it on WWE.com. But um, I don't know. That was one that just popped into my head just because we used to quote that all the time.
Right. If you could go back into managing and you could manage any wrestler right now, who would you want to manage?
I think I could have fun with like Austin Theory and Grayson Waller. Um,
Mm,
I think those guys kind of fit my personality. I feel like that would be a great tag team and a great fit for Brad Bacon. Um, yeah, I think that would be good. That's probably right down my alley there. But like there's people that I would like to manage. That exist. If I had the opportunity to manage the Outrunners, I think Artichoke Jenkins managing the Outrunners would be a perfect fit. That'd be a great time for
right.
Artichoke. You know, um, I wouldn't even mind managing some of the people in the OVW roster. Shalance Royale, I think would be fun. But
Mm,
she's got PJ Jones, who is her legal representative. But who knows? Maybe we need Artichoke needs to get his lawyer's license, and we could start a law firm. Me and Jones and Jenkins Esquire. I don't know. There's a lot of opportunity out there.
right.
Well,
How did you
you
come
got
up
a couple
with
more? Yeah, Blake, you got a couple more because I'm gonna have to jet here shortly.
all right, yeah.
Give me the good stuff. Give me the
So
good stuff. Yeah.
so I know you have your wrestling podcast. When and how did you or when did you start doing podcasting, ringside podcasts, and what just made you want to start doing a podcast?
So Ringside has actually been around, I don't know, 7 or 8 years, I think. That was something started by Daniel Spencer along with Jeremy Wallman. They've been doing it for quite a while, and they had a guy on there with them that just kind of stopped doing it right before COVID, I think. And so Daniel, working with me at OVW was like, "Hey, you want to jump on and be a part of this?" And I said, "Absolutely." So that's when we started doing it. We were doing it live and in person, and then of course COVID, and then we were kind of doing it a little bit less, and so it's now at 200 episodes, which I think is great. I've been on maybe 50 of those. And Linda Kay, who is another just dear friend of mine, and again from your neighborhood up there, part of it as well. So we don't do it half as much as we used to. It used to be a weekly thing, if not more, but we're all super busy, and we'll leave it to the youngsters like you to keep it rolling. But we'll probably be back in a new format. But yeah, that's pretty much how I joined in. It was just kind of Daniel going, "Hey, you want to jump in on this?" And I said, "Yeah, let's do it." So it's really it's his baby, and I'm just kind of along for the ride on.
Yeah. So, what is one thing you would tell your fans in wrestling?
Thank you. Just thank you for appreciating what I do. But most of all, thank you for appreciating the show as a whole. Because that's really what it's all about. It's not just what I do. It's not what people do in the ring. We got a crew of production people that do a great job, and people that help. We got students that are in there helping with everything, and while they're learning their craft. And so just thank you. If you appreciate the show, if you like what you see on OVW, thank you, because we work really, really hard to make sure it's the best product out there, and it takes a whole team to do it, and not one of us could do it by ourselves.
Right. And then for the last question I have for you is, do you have any advice for me to become a wrestler, and just any advice on podcasting for me?
Um, so how old are you now?
16.
16. Okay. So you got a couple years left. Um, I would study all that you can, and obviously you already do, because I can tell by the people that you have on this show. I can tell by just your knowledge of everything, and that even when I think you're too young, that you know it. Study all you can. Watch as much film as you can of wrestling past and present, and watch it with a different eye. Don't watch it critiquing like what you like and what you don't, and don't critique people for their work, or don't just look at it and try to figure out why people are doing what they're doing. You might not know, you might think you know, and it turns out you don't know, but just watch it and figure out the similarities and differences of, the older stuff and the newer stuff. There's some stuff that stays constant and never changes. So just keep a good eye on that. And then in 2 years, I expect you to come to Louisville, Kentucky, and hook up with a dude named Al Snow and get this thing going the right way. Learn the right way. That would be my advice for you. The other stuff, as far as the podcasting goes, I think you're doing a great job. I think you're, the way that you build and you're talking to folks from all eras and all different styles of wrestling and all levels. And I mean, because I'm, who am I in the grand scheme of wrestling? I'm not anybody. But I don't mind talking about my history in wrestling, and I love that you've kind of gone out on the fringe and got some people that, it's like, hey, I don't know anything about this person I want to listen to. So keep that up, keep interviewing everybody you can. And we don't have to put it out there for the world, but I'd be glad to talk to you sometime. Maybe next time I'm up in Wisconsin, we'll sit down for a sec and I'll, we'll do some one-to-one kind of coaching on that. But for right now, I think you're doing good stuff.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
You got it, man.
And I thank you for taking your time out to do this interview. It was a pleasure to have you on here.
Blake, I thank you so much, and thank you for caring enough to have me on this thing, and keep up the good work, and hopefully I'll see you in December, right?
Yeah, I should be going. I hope.
Yep, good deal, man.
Yep. All right. Well, is there anywhere that you would like to say where the fans can find you, like socials or anything?
Yeah, absolutely. Most of the social media, it is at Eric on the Air. Just at Eric on the Air. That's Instagram, that's Twitter, that's TikTok, all that. Just Eric Cornish on Facebook. I don't add everybody on there. If I don't know you, if I haven't met you in person, I'll probably not add you there, because that's kind of my own thing. But everywhere else, reach out, send me a message. I'd love to hear from you. You can go to prowrestlingtees.com/OVW Eric. I've got some t-shirts over there, not only from me and Voice of the Valley, but also Brad Bacon, also Artichoke Jenkins. So you can check that out. And I'm also on Cameo too. So if you want me to do a little ring announcement for you, maybe for a special event, maybe you are an independent wrestler and want your own custom intro, whatever it may be, I would be happy to do that. Just go to Cameo and search Voice of the Valley. I think that's about it. But yeah, love to connect with anybody.
All right. Well, thank you for coming on here.
Thank you, Blake.
Yeah. Have a good rest of your night.
Appreciate it. Have a good one.
Yep. See you.